Have you ever thought about whether the world we live in is real or just a virtual world? Sometimes, the truth brought to us by this infinite exploration may be incredible. If one day, we realize that our lives seem to be controlled by some invisible force, in the end, we will find that we are actually just living in a virtual world. This virtual world is called the Matrix. How would you feel about it? Can you accept this reality? Some scientists have been trying to prove that we may be living in a virtual world and not a real physical world. But, regardless of whether the world we are currently experiencing is real or virtual, from a scientific perspective, we all desire to explore this world in depth and uncover its mysteries. When people discuss the position of the Earth and the universe, and the question of whether other life exists, these questions become even more difficult to understand. With the continuous progress of science and technology, we are able to delve deeper and have a more comprehensive understanding of the world around us. However, the complexity and depth displayed by the material world around us have far exceeded our initial scientific knowledge. As a result, people have started to ponder and question what we see, touch, and feel in this material world. Is it a real existence? Behind all these truths, there are many mysteries and unknowns. Because in the world of quantum, the existence and behavior of observers seem to directly affect the observed particles, or the state and outcome of the system. This suggests that our way and method of observation can have a decisive impact on the material world, rather than just passive observation. This phenomenon challenges our traditional classical physics theories, because it indicates at the microscopic scale there exists a very special relationship between the observer and the observed object. But what is the truth behind the real world and the virtual world? Today, we will unveil it through a scientific perspective. What is the reality we live in? Just a dreamlike illusion? Let's find out. Is it just a dreamlike fantasy? Actually, as early as 2003, Nick Bostrom, a philosophy professor from Oxford University, published a paper titled, "Are We Living in a Computer Simulation?" In this paper, he conducted a detailed analysis of whether we live in a virtual world, or the possibility of living in a computer simulation, or the possibility in computer simulations. This view that we live in a virtual world has been widely recognized, even by some well-known figures, such as Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, who have publicly stated that the probability of us living in a virtual world is 99%, rather than a real physical world. Since there are so many people supporting the view that we live in a virtual world, so is there a way to verify the truth of this viewpoint? Before discussing whether we live in a virtual world, let's first understand the double-slit experiment, because this experiment is the foundation that subverts our traditional beliefs. The results of the double-slit experiment indicate that in the experiment, there is a process of observers observing the experiment. In both cases, the behavior of matter will undergo different changes. In the experiment, if there is no observer to observe the experiment, electrons will exhibit wave-like properties, just like ripples in water. Interference patterns will form after passing through double slits. Whenever there is an observer observing this process, electrons seem to know that someone is observing, and then they exhibit particle-like properties, just like individual particles, and no longer show interference patterns. This discovery indicates the existence and behavior of observers in the quantum world can change the properties of matter. This is a very peculiar phenomenon. This has sparked our in-depth study of the observer effect. And we can understand this phenomenon through a simple analogy. When you are using a cell phone or observing a cell phone, it will work like a normal phone. But when you put the phone in a place where you can't see it, It no longer exhibits any characteristics of a phone. This phenomenon is very peculiar in the real world, but it can be clearly explained by computer programs. Many people may have played 3D games. They know that the scenes in the game are displayed in real time. They don't exist permanently. If you leave an area, the view will disappear. The two Jakes KDA. The computer will not display him again until you take it back. Even your friends are playing 3D games online. What they see is just the image displayed on their own computer. Your perspective can only include what you see. This raises a question. Is the world we live in also like this? Everyone has their own perspective. But is there an unknown system that presents different images to us in real time? Although we seem to share the same world. But we are just living in our own games. Meanwhile, this observation effect has also sparked some scientists to make bold and astonishing hypotheses. Scientists have begun to suspect the perceived reality world. Does it truly exist? Or is everything we experience just the result of our brain processing information? Some people believe the material world we perceive may just be a virtual reality, similar to a fictional environment created by code or computer programs. This idea received support from some supporters in the field of technology. They believe that, with the continuous development of computer technology and artificial intelligence, we have the ability to create increasingly realistic and complex virtual environments. This makes it difficult for us to distinguish the difference between the real world and the virtual world. For example, if there exists a superintelligent civilization, they are able to create a virtual reality program. Its level of realism and complexity goes beyond our understanding and technological level. If this virtual reality is as real as our physical world, then it will be difficult for us to distinguish which one is real and which one is virtual. In fact, this situation seems a bit like a science fiction movie, like the plot in The Matrix. Among them, humans are controlled by a virtual reality system called the Matrix. They live in a virtual world constructed by code, but they themselves are unaware of the real world. The real world is actually a wasteland ruled by machines. This raises profound questions. How do we determine if we are living in the real world and not in a virtual world? This raises profound questions. How do we make sure we live in the real world rather than in a virtual world? Do we have something testable? What are the standards for our perception and understanding? Can we really trust our own senses and brains? There is no simple answer to this question. Everyone may have different opinions. However, from a scientific perspective, we can try to explore this question. From the perspective of quantum mechanics reveals the most fundamental particles in nature, and the nature and laws of forces, including some magical and puzzling phenomena, such as the uncertainty principle, wave-particle duality, observer effect, entanglement, and interference. These phenomena indicate, at the quantum level, the properties of matter and energy are different from our traditional understanding of physics. But it is probabilistic. Some scientists believe that these phenomena may imply that the physical world we see is not real, but rather a virtual reality created by code. Scientists have put forward some arguments to support this view. One of the arguments is based on information theory. This is a branch of mathematics that studies information transmission and processing. Theory includes information commerce, concepts such as information quality and information compression. Information theory points out, any form of information can be represented by binary code, such as 0 and 1. This encoding method can be used to describe any physical system or phenomenon, including electronic, photon, sound, image, etc. If we consider the entire universe as a massive information system, so it can also be represented by binary code. In other words, everything in the universe can be described using the encoding of 0 and 1. And this is not a difficult task for a highly advanced civilization. To create a realistic virtual world. The nature of the world we live in. Whether it is tangible, or a virtual construct, or a virtual build. It has always been a fascinating topic. So far, there hasn't been any scientific experiment that can prove or refute this. We may never be able to determine whether we are in the real world or enveloped in a virtual world. Nevertheless, this doesn't prevent us from continuing to explore and learn about this mysterious world. No matter if the reality around us is real or fictional, what matters most is our continuous progress in exploring, learning, and experiencing. Because whether it is real or virtual, it is a part of our lives. Every new discovery, no matter how insignificant, will expand our knowledge, assist us in gaining a deeper understanding of the workings of nature and the universe. Do you believe our world is real or virtual? Share your thoughts on this matter in the comments section. Different perspectives and opinions. Thank you all for patiently watching and following. See you in the next episode.